Hey guys, so of course 2023 is coming to an end. As usual, I wanted to do a survey and gather your thoughts in terms of the favorite archetypes, favorite sets, favorite players for the year, and much more. So huge thanks to all of you who responded to the survey, who shared the survey. You can definitely check me out on Twitter so you don't miss out on future surveys. Now, key thing, this video usually doesn't end up doing very well, so would really appreciate it if you could share the video within your networks, or if you're watching this video through another streamer, if you could at least still click on the video, maybe put it on mute, leave it in the background, would really appreciate that. And one last thing I want to mention is I actually recorded this video already, and the camera part facing me was not recording the entire time, so I'm only just re-recording this intro part, but for the rest of the video you won't see me anymore. And before we continue, definitely go check out those discount codes for Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles and Seal product, especially after that ban list. You can use code Okuna5 for 5% off at various stores, and also definitely check out discount codes for other supplies as well. You can find all of those in the video description below. So anyways, let's just get started and get to know our respondents a little bit better in terms of the survey. And we of course had almost a quarter being more casual level, so that basically means, at least the way I defined it was, you know, kind of like you rarely play locals, but more so with like friends or online only, for example. And then semi-competitive is where you at least play at the local level, and competitive would be you play at least at for example like regional level and higher, like YCS. So pretty much we have more competitive player base responding to this survey than what it actually would be like in the overall Yu-Gi-Oh! Population, because I'm sure there's a lot more casual players in that regard. Now, in terms of, you know, how long they've played Yu-Gi-Oh!, of course, as time goes on and Yu-Gi-Oh!'s been out for a long time, you're gonna have a lot more players in like that 10+ year range. But I'm kind of interested in sort of like, and I'm sure Konami, if they're ever watching this video, will be interested too in terms of the kind of like the newer players, and that let's say about 22%, 23% being within the last 2 years. So essentially starting kind of like during the pandemic. Of course, again, understanding the kind of player base that responded to the survey, which is more so competitive players. Now, in terms of how much the players enjoyed Yu-Gi-Oh! For the year in 2023, we had about like 83-84% agreeing that they enjoyed Yu-Gi-Oh! Compared to, let's say, for example, when I asked this last year, it was around like 75%, so definitely a little bit higher this time around. And of course, actually compared to last year, 59% enjoyed Yu-Gi-Oh! More. And when I asked this last year, they also felt kind of the same way, which of course, the year prior to that, there weren't really in-person events, so it was understandable last year that they enjoyed Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot more. But even this year, that enjoyment and like, entertainment is still kicking strong. Now we're going to get a little bit more specific in terms of TCG level competitive events, but how many regionals did you actually attend in 2023? Of course, understandably, like just around half did not attend any, and most of the time if you are attending, you are about 28% attending 1 to 2. Now, it's not necessarily about how competitive you are, but unfortunately this also has to do with geographical limitations, right? Like some places, some areas that you live in, you're going to have a lot of regionals happening within your city, within neighboring cities, whereas certain areas, let's say, you're just not going to have many regionals or at all. So that's kind of like the unfortunate downside. And of course, that gets a little bit more extreme when it comes to like YCS level kind of events, or not, whatever you have it. So 57% saying they never attended it, but you know what, a good chunk, 30%, at least among, in terms of my this survey respondent player base, 30% attending 1 to 2 for the year. Of course, if you look at the attendance for like these YCS level events, they've been actually quite strong for almost all of them. So the game, at least from a competitive standpoint and those kind of level events, is going strong. Now, in terms of the different number of decks that they played, at least at the local level, and I specified as local level just because it implies, physical play, so as in you have to actually buy these cards to play these different decks. For the most part, I know some people are able to borrow, but most people probably don't have that luxury. So anyways, most 55% putting 2 to 5 decks for the year. This is probably about right, because especially if you're like a competitive player as well, and you're trying to play whatever is the best deck of the format, you're probably cycling through like at least like 4 different decks in a year. Of course, there were a small number saying that they played more than 20 decks in a year. I'm not sure if they actually did buy all of those cards, or if they actually meant more so they played it online as well, but nonetheless kind of cool to see. So now let's get in terms of the product, which I'm sure is something that Konami is always interested in, but which core set this year was the favorite? So overwhelming majority was actually from Age of Overlord. This of course is the most recent set that came out, which you kind of have to account for in these kind of questions, in terms of like bias that comes with it. But at the same time, I think this is actually pretty fair, because Age of Overlord, it did introduce something like SP Little Knight, for example, Typhon, and you even have some really cool archetypes like, let's say, Horus, and then you also have like the Wanted package. So it's been really strong set. Duelist Nexus, Cyberstorm Axis. I'm surprised Photon Hypernova was this slow. That of course introduced like all the really good tier cards and made them tier 1, and you even had something like Thrust, which is an incredible staple card, which we'll get to shortly. Cyberstorm Axis of course had some branded support as well, which of course is something that I enjoyed in terms of like the Quem, the Lulu, and what have you. Duelist Nexus of course is the one recent after Age of Overlord, and this had actually some generic stuff like, let's say, Crimson Dragon, Revolution Synchron as well, and on top of that it introduced that existing support, or rather support for existing archetypes such as Unchained and Infernoble Knight. In terms of the favorite side set, this is honestly no surprise, the rarity set, just overwhelming majority, 81%, and Konami, hopefully they continue to make this set every year. They did put the set list as RA01, so hopefully there's 2 and 3 and what have you. Hopefully they keep continuing, because I'm sure, there's also a lot of different cards that they could add that for next year, for example. Some of the other side sets, like Amazing Defenders, of course, this introduced like, Rescue Ace, Pearly, Makonko, which on release, this set, like those archetypes were actually quite bad. Of course, with second wave support, they became essentially, tier 1, at the very least, tier 2 for Makonko, really doing well. Wild Survivors, unfortunately, was not a great set. It did introduce Vanquish Soul, which of course a lot of people liked. And then the remaining sets, honestly, quite forgivable, or forgettable rather. Like Maze of Memories at time was kind of good, but Barone was kind of one of the key cards in that set, and of course it got reprinted, and it's just basically a bulk card at this point. Soul Burning Volcano Salamander support's always nice, but really just the set did not do well at all. And Valence Smashes being the most recent one, I'm surprised this even got voted lower than Volcano or like Battles of the Legend, but of course introduced something like Centurion, which has been pretty solid so far, but the other 2 archetypes introduced in that set, of course, pretty forgettable as well. So next, in terms of the favorite, Structured X Fire King comes out on top. It came out very recently and has also shown already at YCS Bologna that it can top. Of course, you kind of need the Wanted engine to play it optimally, but you know what? It's also going to just only get better with like Bonfire and Populous coming out early next year as well. So really shown to be a very strong structure deck. Trap Tricks came out early this year as well, and was off the bat was very popular. It did well at regional level events. YCS level only got not that many tops, unfortunately, but nonetheless incredibly budget and very good for what you get. And then lastly, Crimson King, unfortunately, also one of the more forgettable products, at least in terms of the other structured decks compared wise. But you know what, Bestial Resonator has been pretty solid rogue strategy as well, so it's not absolute garbage either. And of course, in terms of the favorite OTS pack this year, 21 came out as number 1, so that was the one with like Strike Blue and Fenrir and Rhino Heart. OTS 2022, of course, had something like Thrust, and then 23 being the most recent one, being something like, Kirkara, like the Enemy Control, and Big Welcome, which has actually been going up, at least in terms of price, spiking lately actually at the time of recording. And of course, in terms of the favorite Ultimate Rare that was released among these packs this year, kind of like a pretty split in terms of top 3, but at the same time I was kind of surprised Sprite Blue came out on top among all things, because something like Thrust is like a generic one, so I thought that would be like number 1. Fenrir, of course, is also a generic one. Enemy Control has been pretty popular tech choices lately as well, especially in like a Rescue Ace Mirror. Branded Fusion, of course, personally my favorite, but nonetheless the other ones not as popular, especially like Per Lily. Honestly, that card is like $10 at this point for an Ultimate Rare, but you know what, has been a pretty good product this year. Next, in terms of favorite staple or packages that were released this year, of course, Thrust being just honestly revolutionary in terms of even deck building, like going second. You don't have to play as many, let's say like Evenly or Lightning Storm. You can always search it off Thrust. It's probably going to be live when you're going second, and going first can also set blowout cards like D-Barrier that you only have to play like one of nowadays. And then you have like the Abelstar Wanted engine, which has been very popular. It's been kind of like the year of the fire. You have like Rescue Ace, and you have like, let's say like Makonko stuff, Infernoble stuff, and even early next year, as I mentioned, you have something like Bonfire and Populous coming out, which will only make the package better. Horse has also been quite popular. It's been used with, let's say tier limits, most notably something like Phantom Knights, even Chimera, and then Kenjen. Honestly, kind of surprised this many people voted for it. I guess like the Makonko players really love to hand rip. And then you have something like Revolution Synchron, which at the time it came out was quite hype, but then of course something like the Adventure Synchron pile kind of deck really died off very quickly. Did not have any form of YCS success or even regional success at that. So unfortunately, has not done as well as people probably hoped. And then you have something like Inscription as well, which has been a pretty interesting tech choice against certain matchups, like let's say Unchained. Next, in terms of staple extra deck, that was a favorite for this year, of course, not surprisingly, SP Little Knight comes out on top, came out in Age of Overlord, most recent set, the best Link 2 in the game. Now, of course, if history shows us anything, usually the best Link 2s end up getting banned, so perhaps the days are numbered for SP, but for now, it should be safe. You have something like Typhon, the Reverse Zeus, which has also been very popular, and in on most people's extra decks as well. Bestial Dispatter, while technically archetype specific, has been in a lot of different kind of decks as well, and is shown to be really strong. Chaos Angel is another kind of generic one. I guess not every deck can play it, but you know what, for the most part, it is something you see in a lot of different decks, especially something like Labyrinth has been really strong as well. Excel Synchro Stardust has been also good for like Barone plays. Of course, Arise Heart's a little bit more specific to Kashira, but has been a dominant force this year. And of course, Crimson Dragon, while at the time it came out, wasn't as popular, but nowadays, especially with Centurion, this is definitely one of the key cards in that deck as well. Now, in terms of the favorite archetype that was introduced this year, that was the people's favorite, it was actually Vanquish Soul. So this has, of course, been getting like at least one YCS top consistently, so really sneaking in there. But at the same time, kind of an expensive deck for a deck that's not tier 1, unfortunately. You have some other stuff like Pearly and Rescues, which we kind of talked about. Vanadium also came out this year, of course, and has been, honestly, after that ban list, probably one of the bigger names to watch out for next year. Gold Pride has been quickly forgotten. It was kind of played with like Gold Pride Punk, especially even up until like this summer, and really kind of disappeared since then. And of course, McConk was showing a lot of promise lately as well. Unfortunately, though, did get that Isolde ban recently. And then in terms of, the support this year for existing archetypes, the favorite was Unchained. So of course this was kind of like a slept on rogue deck. It did see some play as a rogue option like before the pandemic, but really throughout the last few years really has not seen play at all. And of course finally came back and now tier 1, and then now unfortunately with that ban list kind of got knocked off a peg. Abla's Lore kind of making a return this year with like Lulu, Quem, Sanctifier, and what have you, Rinbrum even. So that's been also cool. Super heavy Samurai. Unfortunately the support did not last very long in terms of tier 1 success, like maybe like 3 weeks until Scarecrow got banned. Chimera, of course, is more for, let's say, like Yugi's like anime kind of deck, so that's been really cool and has been a meta relevant strategy even now. For Noble Knight, this was originally a tier 1 strategy early days of the pandemic in a more toxic way, like a lot of hand rips. Was not fun in that format, but they kind of got all the support that kind of changed how they play. Of course, having that Isolde ban, but I'm sure they can make it out. Salamangreat, once a tier 1 deck in like 2019, I guess, really fell off, but you know what? It got some support this year. It even had YCS Topper 2 and also saw some regional success, although lately not so much. Gate Guardian, obviously as a deck, it's still bad, but you know what? I think it's really cool that Konami did end up making support for this, because this is definitely one of those fan favorite archetypes that people have been calling for support, especially because, how cool it was in the anime, but it was just really difficult to summon out in practice. So really cool that it did get some support. And of course, Altergeist as well, one of the newer supports, was once a tier 1 deck like 5 years ago, but unfortunately, even with the new support, not really quite there. Alright, so now let's get to the best player voting. So basically, if you voted them as the best player, it would equal 3 points. If you voted them as second best, 2 points, and etc. Kind of like how NBA MVP voting works. So anyways, let's get right into the voting. So at number 10, we are starting with Steven Trifanowski, aka Trif Gaming. So of course, he finished top 4 YCS Indianapolis with Vanadium. He's shown a lot of kind of like innovation with that deck. Has been doing really well recently with regional events as well that you can follow him on Twitter for updates. So really high energy dude. Definitely go check him out on YouTube as well if you somehow haven't. You will really appreciate his content. So next we have Juho An from Germany, my fellow Korean. So of course has done really well this year. 4 YCS tops plus a top at Euros, I believe. Has been incredibly consistent. Of course at Euros he was kind of known for being like Feather Duster for 5, but of course that's not what he should be known for. He's even also made Worlds as well, so really accomplished player and has been tearing it up this year as well. So definitely a big congrats. So next we have my boy Ryan Yu, which of course I'm very proud to say he's also a fellow Canadian. Obviously a household name in this game, especially since his like Dragon Duel days. So this year has done really well. 4 Premier Tops in 2023. Does not include the Master Duel Worlds second place as well. Now of course I'm actually basing the event top information from the Yu-Gi-Oh wiki page, which I actually didn't even know until today that they had pages for players. So I guess if you're watching, I guess your goal for 2024 will be to do well enough at events so that you get a wiki page created for you as well. But anyways, has been really tearing it up. Has done really well with Labyrinth especially. I'm sure you would have seen some of those regional topping deck profiles on my own channel, which I'm very grateful to have Ryan on the channel multiple times. So anyways, big congrats Ryan, really happy for you. Next, speaking of Canadians, we have Steven Santoli, who of course has been doing really well lately. He's finished first place at YCS Indianapolis. He finished first place at the remote YCS earlier this year as well, with Exo Sister of all decks. So since the last year, he's really been tearing it up. He's also finished top 8 at Worlds this year. Even finished first in that Worlds qualifying tournament as well, which you would have seen on my channel. So I'm really grateful to have done some content with him. Really nice guy and a very well accomplished player and very well deserved in terms of recognition. So next we have of course Paulie Aronson, of course winning Worlds and being the first American to win Worlds. So really cool, and this photo is probably one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh photos that we'll ever come across in our lifetime. Has done really well in terms of events. Also from all the interviews I've seen him, seems like a really nice person as well. So really well deserved, and really congrats again for that Worlds finish. And so at number 5, we have another player from Germany in Dinka Bui, of course a well-known name for quite some time now. This year, 5 Premier Event Tops, really impressive, most notably with like Labyrinth recently as well. So I think that's really cool. And on top of that, of course, I personally first came across him when he won YCS Milan with Prank Kids, that I'm sure you'll remember a few years ago when that deck first came out. So really well deserved of your recognition. And number 4, we of course have Pac, of course, very well known in terms of the content creation space as well, but also from a playing perspective, he's been very, very well accomplished. For example, even a couple years ago when he won the remote dual YCS, and then once we actually started having in-person events again, he's just been tearing it up, having a lot of tops, 8 premier event tops this year, at least based on that wiki page, which is absolutely incredible. Has also shown in terms of content creation, like just a lot of innovation in terms of, deck building, combos, like let's say with like Infernoble or let's say Unchained, post-banlist. So really, really highly recommend checking him out in terms of content, but also just following him as a player, and just overall very, very great dude. And then at number 3, we have Jessica Robinson, 5 premier event tops in 2023. Again, very impressive, and also really impressive considering that, a lot of times she was playing Rika, which of course for the most part is a rogue deck, and also actually created a YouTube channel earlier this year, which we'll actually get to a little bit later in the video, but something you can definitely go check out, Sunseed Just, in terms of especially when it comes to Rika content. And at number 2, we have the legendary Jessie Cotton. Of course, has been known as one of the best, if not the best player for a very, very long time. Number of premier event tops in 2023, 10, which is absolutely insane and just incredible. Really, really strong player in terms of deck building, theory, and what have you. Of course, has a YouTube channel, which again, we'll get to a little bit later in this section of this video. But, something definitely worth checking out, especially with a player of his caliber, and just hearing his thoughts has been really, really incredible. And of course, a very big congrats to you again for this year. And that means that number 1 is Joshua Schmidt. Of course, he recently won YCS Bologna with a pretty interesting Bestial Runic synchro strategy. In terms of number of premier event tops, 4 for this year. I believe he only attends European events. I'm sure if he travels to all the other ones across the world, he would also have more tops. But, no one's ever doubting how good Joshua Schmidt is. Incredible player, especially when it comes to deck building. And of course, also creates content, which is incredible for competitive players and striving to become better. And again, we'll touch that a little bit later. But huge congrats to all of you in terms of your player success. Now, in terms of favorite player voting, this pretty much reflected essentially like the best players as well. But I guess one notable difference though is Jeff Leonard being in the top 5. Of course, most well known for his like Mystic Mind burn days, but ever since Mystic Mind got banned rather, he of course showed up on stream and Exodia FTK'd on stream, which was absolutely incredible, and of course one of the more favorite players in this game clearly. And rounding out the top 10 again, pretty similar to in terms of the best player voting as well. And so for the final section of this video in terms of content creation, what were your favorite content creators for the year in 2023? And so we're going to start off with Pac, as mentioned earlier, just incredible content when it comes to, becoming a better competitive player, just providing really good deck lists, as well as, how to play certain combos and just how to play around certain things. Just overall, it's just such an incredible player, and just really cool to see like his side of things and his take of the game. And then tied for number 9 is Crush Cards. I love Crush Cards as well. They're just so incredibly amazing people. They have a lot of, probably the most positive energy among any kind of content creator in Yu-Gi-Oh! And their Let's Top Local series, basically kind of like a vlog. Content of like their locals experience has been incredible in terms of especially editing, but just the content itself, really enjoyable watch, and of course highly recommend. And then at number 8, technically it was me, but I cannot consider that, right? I mean, I'm the one that administered the survey, so a lot of the respondents are probably my audience, which means they were more likely to vote for me compared to, let's say, if someone else had administered the survey, then I'm sure I would not have made it on here, and quite frankly, I do not deserve to be on here anyways. But I do appreciate for those of you that voted, but nonetheless, let's just move on. And so we actually have Simo here at number 8, so of course a legendary name in the Yu-Gi tubing space, really most well known for creating the progression series, as well as kind of similar series around that, like History of Yu-Gi-Oh!, History of Jank, and of course recently Master Duel Masochist. So really enjoyable, entertaining content. Definitely one of the longer standing names out there, and really been doing well. And then number 7, we have Luke Von Karma. Of course, he was actually voted last year's year-end survey as one of the best up-and-coming content creators, and has done really well so far in terms of very enjoyable Master Duel content as well that you can check out. And then at number 6, we have Distant Coder. Of course, has been doing really well the past year, hit that 100k plus subscriber mark, and most recently got unbanned as a player, which meant, I've actually been enjoying his company at my locals, because we do both live in Toronto. Has been really good. He's also done pretty well in his first regionals back as well, and I'm sure his content will also start incorporating more TCG stuff now that he's playing at events again, so really happy for you, Kevin. So let's get to the top 5 in a little bit more dramatic fashion, and we're going to start off with DZ, of course, very well known for, Master Roulette, Master Saga, those kind of like Master Duel Challenge kind of videos, but also has been historically more known for, a lot of like commentary videos in terms of, which cards or archetypes are played, and, why they're good, why they're not, is also so just very well deserved on your continued success. And then at number 4, we have the DB Grinder, which is of course very, very good if you're trying to play competitively and want to get better. He really provides a variety of different replays of the best decks of the meta, going over misplays, and just really knows this game very well, clearly, that you can tell when you watch his videos. I personally watch a lot of his videos just before like regional events, just to kind of like recap the meta, especially if you're like me who doesn't have time to test all the different kind of decks. And at number 3, we of course have Farfa, who has been a big name in this game for quite some time, really provides a lot of enjoyable content with his humor in terms of, like meme-like content, but also of course table 500, jankiest combos, like really entertaining to watch, and of course has been actually part of Konami's team as well in terms of broadcasting for YCS events, so really congrats on your continued success. And at number 2, we have MBT, who of course has been a big name in this game for quite some time, especially in the last couple of years, has really grown. Of course provides a variety of different content, let's say a 10-minute testing with a variety of new different archetypes that's come out, or Master Circuit series or what have you, and combined with his humor, really fun to watch, and again, congrats on your success as well. And that means at number 1, we have Joshua Schmidt. So clearly the year of Joshua Schmidt, we already know how good he is as a player, but he has content is incredibly just amazing in terms of, like testing out new archetypes that are meta relevant, providing tier lists of, the best hand traps or best tech choices, and other content related to Master Duel as well. So, of course, a player of his caliber, his knowledge is just incredibly insightful. And so if you want to improve as a player, this is definitely one of the channels to check out and look out for. So again, a big congrats to you, Josh, but a big congrats to really all of you in the content creation space as well. And so let's cap off this video with the best newcomer content creators for 2023 as voted by you guys. And so we're going to start off with Galzo, really incredible channel. I personally came across Galzo earlier this year when I was trying to learn branded, because his channel is definitely the go-to for that. But of course he does much more than just branded stuff. He has just a lot of different meta relevant videos, as well as even lore videos on top of that. Very high production content, and also makes just incredible thumbnails. So a big congrats to you. And number 4, we have Cards and Coffee TCG. This is another name that you have to watch out for if you watch his videos. It's again very high quality production. It looks like one of those very high budget podcasts that you would see. Not that he does podcasts, but he does like a lot of different like combos, deck profiles, and everything. Just really incredible content that you have to check out. And number 3, we have Sunseed Jess, which we kind of talked about earlier in the video when we were talking about Jessica Robinson. Really created that channel earlier this year. It's been incredible in terms of, especially for that Rika experience that I'm sure a lot of you are interested in. That definitely go check that out. And then at number 2, we have Garrett, which is another channel you really have to keep an eye on. Has been growing a lot lately. Really provides unique content in terms of providing commentary or over certain clips in terms of live stream content, like of premiere events, and just going over why they played certain way and why they didn't. Really insightful stuff, and again, very high quality content as well. So definitely go check that out. And then finally, at number 1 for best new content creator is Jesse Cotton. It almost feels like he's been creating content for quite some time, but he actually started earlier this year. Again, similar to like likes of Joshua Schmidt, Pack. Anytime you have players and Jessica Robinson, of course, anytime you have players who are of that caliber and creating content, it's just really insightful in terms of learning how to play a deck properly, or let's say like just understanding meta relevant tech choices and what have you. So really incredible content that you just have to check out if you want to improve as a player. Anyways, guys, that was it for the year-end recap for 2023 in terms of your favorite archetypes, your favorite sets, your favorite players, and what have you. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, again, it would mean a lot if you could share this video with your fellow Yu-Gi-Oh! Networks. I really enjoyed making it. Personally, I'm very grateful for my own growth on the channel for 2023. Really appreciate all of you who've ever watched even a second of my videos. Big thanks to those who watched this video in particular, and also huge thanks to my patrons as always for the continued support. Hopefully you have a wonderful holiday break, and let's have a great 2024. Well, take care, guys.